This is the Be One Change One podcast, where our mission is to help listeners define values, practice integrity, and inspire change.
Our vision is to mentor men and empower them to achieve more by taking responsibility for shaping their own lives.
He's CAS, an evolving man who has been shaped by adversity and continues to grow through his imperfections.
And he's Roscoe, an imperfect work in progress that tries to suck less every day.
Between us, we have over 40 years of Air Force fighter pilot experience with countless hours as trainers, instructors, and mentors.
Join us and learn to take responsibility for your own life as we dive into subjects from leadership to resilience to vulnerability.
Be the one who changes their course. Be decisive, driven, and purposeful. Set the example for others. Lead. We wish we'd had this show when we were younger men.
Be the one.
Yeah, I restarted my gunk because that was the second time that had happened to us.
Yeah.
So I had this idea, man, that when I was coaching football, the last season that I coached football, I coached for an organization called the West Valley Spartans, and a shout out to the West Valley Spartans. But they came up with their version of this Spartan Code. Fast forward a couple of years, and I had written a coach's guide, and it's about the size of my other books over here. I mean, it's fairly comprehensive. I wrote this coach's guide, and it wasn't really an X's and O's guide. It was how to be a better coach, how to understand the rules and the methodologies of practice and plan, execute, brief, debrief, and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did was I took their Spartan Code and I kind of parsed it out into coaches' language and what all this stuff means. And it just got me thinking about, if we can do this for youth players, maybe we could do something like that for the adults in the room and talk about the Spartan Code. I mean, it's fucking ancient, man. It goes back to whenever BC, over when the Spartans were, and their methodologies and some of the things that they believed in. Although I will say they're maybe extreme the way they're written, but hopefully we can pull some good lessons out of there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think a lot of it just comes down to, obviously they were a warrior society. So there was a lot of it that was wrapped up into creating, strength, both physically, but also mentally, to endure the things that they were going to expect their warriors or their army professionals to do. There's definitely some great takeaways that we can get. I mean, obviously most people are never going to be that extreme in their lives. They also killed babies with defects and did all those kinds of things because they were trying to create this pristine society, which obviously is probably not the best way to go about things, but there's definitely some things that we can take away from just how they approach developing and building those mindsets and the things that they focused on to do that. So
yeah, and along those lines, kind of what you're talking about, I found this during my research for that coach's guide. I found this thing called agoge. Have you heard of this?
Mm-hmm.
This was basically their training program, their school, and young Spartans went in at the age of 6 or 7, and they weren't really technically dismissed from that until they were about 30. So, I mean, think about that. Think about a 7-year-old to a 30-year-old, and we've talked about how men's brains mature somewhere in the mid to late 20s, things like that. So you've got your entire brain development really from adolescence all the way up through adulthood in this concept of being a war fighter and being a leader. And the term agoge really comes from one of the Greek words. It's a verb, and it means to lead. And so, when I think most people could probably relate if they watched the movie 300 and just the mentality that you saw in the warriors, and as fictional as that may have been and as dramatic as it was, look at the mentality that they had. Like 300 people going up against a 10,000 man army. They're like, all right, bet we got this. We can figure out a way.
We can pull it
we'll
out.
fight in the shade, But I mean, that takes not only a lot of training, but holy crap, man, like you have to have supreme confidence in your capabilities. And that all comes from their training program.
Yeah. Well, and let's just be honest, man. Most of the tasks, most of the struggles, most of the obstacles that you're going to face in life, it's going to come down to mindset, whether or not you prevail, right? It really is.
Yeah.
It's going to come down because life is going to offer you plenty of opportunities to give up. Like whatever that goal is that you have for yourself, you're going to get plenty of chances to go, this is too fucking hard, or to go, this is the third, fourth, fifth, however many times, right? And it's just, it never works out. So forget it, right? You're always going to get that opportunity. But I mean, perseverance is a thing, right? And that mindset of not giving up is a thing. Think about, like, what was it? Abe Lincoln. He ran for public office 17 times and lost every one of them. And then on the 18th one became one of the most influential presidents that we've ever had in this United States of America.
For sure.
You look at famous authors who, had sent their books to publishers 30, 40, 50 different times and getting a thanks but no thanks. And, now there are these, regaled authors that have written these, epic book series and made millions of dollars for the publisher that finally picked them up and themselves, so you just never give up, man.
Well, I was, as you were saying that, I reached around to my bookshelf and I just wanted to throw this out there. Have you read this one?
I haven't read Grit yet.
Grit by Angela Duckworth. It's pretty good, man. There's some things in here that are not controversial, but you read enough of these things, they become a little bit cliche. But one of the things that sticks out to me in this book is she clearly defines what grit is, at least in her language, and she said it's passion plus perseverance.
Yeah,
and that's a pretty common theme around here in the Be One Change One universe, where you have to give things time. You have to work hard towards things. You have to give it the requisite amount of time that it deserves, and you have to kind of be passionate about it. And sometimes you have to shop around a little bit to find that passion. Like choosing the first thing that you think of may not really be your passion, but it could be a path to it.
Yeah, that's right.
So give it a little bit of time and stick it out, and you might find something.
Yeah, and then just keep pressing, man. Like if there's really something that you want to do, or there's a goal that you really have that you want to get to, don't let the obstacles deter you from, making the pivots you need to, from going in different directions. I mean, David's a perfect example of that with his quest to get back into the military. I mean, he had 5-6 recruiters just flat out go, "No, dude, we can't help you," and he just kept looking until he found one that said, "Yeah, dude, I can take you on. I can help you out." And he's in the Army now. So, I mean, like, you just have to have that grit, that perseverance, that ability to
stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah. And just recognize that you're going to have obstacles. It doesn't matter what that goal or that objective is. You're going to face those things. And that's when it's really important, I think, to focus on the process, because you're going to learn something about yourself. You're going to learn something about, in all of these things, as you face obstacles and then you overcome them, and then you face the next one and you overcome that. That's all stuff that you're learning, so that the next time you do this again and you face those things, you can go, "Yeah, dude, I've seen that before. It's no big deal. Like, I got this." Like, it just builds on itself. It gives you some momentum.
And I'll add to that doesn't mean that the next time you see it, it's not going to suck equally.
That's true.
And in the pregame, I was telling you kind of where I'm at right now with my training and everything, and I've been kind of phoning it in for a few weeks, and I'm staying active, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not giving it 100%. I'm kind of taking the easy way out, and I know it. I recognize it. I've seen this movie before. I know how it ends, but that doesn't make it easy to get back up on that horse.
It doesn't.
It's still a mental challenge to say, no, man, I gotta notch out this time for me every day. And it doesn't help that it's been fucking hell hot around here for the last little bit,
especially for the guy that likes to work outside.
God, that kind of takes the fun out of it, when you know that you're just going to go out and this is going to be completely miserable. But, and let's take that conversation, that same trope, and let's go into the first one on the list here. And it says a Spartan pushes their mind and their body to their limits. Yes, you do. You need to push, and you need to push the boundary of what's comfortable for you. Things that we say 1,000 times out here is get out of that comfort zone. Keep pushing that boundary out a little bit, because if you do that more and more, you find where that edge is and you just step over it just a little bit. Well, guess what, man? You just move that edge out a little bit. And if you find it really difficult to do 5 pull-ups right now, if you go do 1,000 pull-ups, guess what? 5 pull-ups isn't going to be hard for you anymore. Now you've bumped that out to maybe 10 or maybe 15, and I can take this first one for what it is and say, push your mind and your body to their limits. I will say, though, I will tag on here that there needs to be some balance.
Oh, absolutely. So, whether it's your training for so the way that I read this, like the point is that you've got to, your mind is going to give up well before the voices in your head or your brain in physical exertion is going to give up way before your
Stan is a
body
loud
will, or
cheerleader, man.
right. And so the point of that is that you're more capable. You can endure more, you can do more than you probably believe you can. And you don't figure that out about yourself unless you start to push in certain areas. You don't figure that out about yourself until you push yourself to some of those limits, like you're saying, until you push those boundaries. And then you recognize, oh, dude, I can run for 10 more minutes than I did last time. Or, the last time I went 50 minutes, that was the farthest I ever ran. And this time I went an hour, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can do it. Now there is balance, right? Whether you're training for a marathon or just life in general, you've got to give yourself rest, to prevent injury. You've got to give yourself rest, just that decompression time, because otherwise, things are just going to build on themselves and things boil over.
Yeah.
And when you get overwhelmed in the pursuit of a goal or things like that, I think oftentimes what happens is you start to lose a lot of clarity, right? Because all you see are obstacles, or there just seems like there's so many moving pieces that you can't get your arms all around it, that you start to lose a little bit of clarity on what are the priorities, what needs to be attacked right now, how do I keep moving forward, what's left foot, right foot right now, right? And what you end up doing is just pissing on the fire closest to your feet, and that may not be the best course of action depending on what you're doing. So the bullets underneath that I think are good, or it says that members are always learning and developing new skills. It's all about a growth mindset, continued education, right? So maybe you hit a roadblock, right? And we've talked about this, where you realize, man, maybe I'm really deficient in this particular skill, or maybe I just need some additional training or a little more education, right? Those are things that you can go out and pursue. Those are things that you can go out and attack. You can set a goal for that. You can set a plan for that, right? And continue to expand and build and make yourself better.
Yeah. Do you listen to the Sean Ryan podcast at all by chance?
I've listened to a few of them.
Yeah, I've been listening. It's like 3 hours and 45 minutes long. One of his latest conversations was with Megyn Kelly, and reaching way back into her, her decision to go to law school and then eventually go into journalism and all that. And she was talking about just her mindset of how she's just always kind of been this really hungry, thirsting for knowledge and lean forward, and there's no task too tall and all that. But that comes at a trade-off, man, and that trade-off could be burnout.
Yeah.
And it's something I think we all face from time to time. I know if I go deep into a project and I stick with it for a few months, you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, man, I need to step away from this for a little bit, focus my energy and my efforts on something else, and kind of rekindle that flame, if you will, because it almost gets stamped out for a little bit. It becomes work and not passion at some point.
Yeah.
And then one of the things I wanted to add to what you were saying was, I'll speak just from my own personal experience. When I was younger, my body could do things that my mind couldn't do. A better way to say that is my mind wasn't strong enough to push my body to its very limit a lot of times. But as I got older, those two lines kind of met and they crossed. And now I'm very headstrong and I'm very capable, and I feel like I've got I've got a high level of mental toughness, but as I've aged, my body just can't keep up with that. And the example is, we have to train, you and I have to train for a few months to go do the Spartan race, where when I was 25, I could probably wake up tomorrow and go do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all these things, man, you have to, when we're talking about pushing limits and everything, understand that there are some physical barriers that you may just not be able to get across. It might not be a mental thing, and well documented that the mind will quit before the body does. However, there are going to be limits to that.
Yep. But that's part of that process too, is understanding what your limits are.
Yeah.
Or even maybe where your weaknesses or deficiencies are, and then figuring out if there's ways to improve that, or if that's just, no kidding, a hard stop, right? Because then you can be really intentional about how you move through situations or scenarios to kind of highlight your strengths and to stay in your strengths and not be forced into a situation where now you're in a place where maybe you're not as strong. So
well, I will be. I'm brutally honest with myself when I say I will probably never run a 6-minute mile again. My knees and my back just won't let me push hard enough to get down to that level. I'm okay with that though, because I can challenge myself in other ways.
That's right.
Go burn a couple of 100 calories on an assault bike. Get on a rower and crush yourself a little bit. There's other ways to push outside of your comfort zone rather than going back to your old mantra or your old habits of, well, I'll just go for a jog and I'll push and I'll run like a thoroughbred until my heart stops. Dude, it's just not realistic the older we get sometimes.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, I think, again, what they're really getting at with this is I think most of us are better and more capable than we think we are. And maybe it just takes learning some new skills. Maybe it just takes a little bit of further education on something. But you can get to where you want to go if you just have that growth mindset and focus on those things and continue to move forward, and strive to improve yourself, right? That's the bottom line.
That was the nail on the nugget right there, is growth mindset. Don't be afraid to try to learn something new.
Yeah.
And it is hard. It is challenging. I've been going through it for several months now, trying to learn a new thing. And man, it's hard and it's humbling too. And just when you think you got everything figured out, go try to learn a new language.
Yeah, you don't have it figured out.
And it'll humble you down a little bit, but that's a good thing, right? And it helps
man.
It helps remind you that, you know what, you ain't all that in a bag of potato chips.
No, and nor is anybody else.
That's I'm sitting there talking to a guy today about investing, and I realize I don't know jack shit about investing. I don't really care to, but to go back to that skills will, if you have the skill, will, and time, then DIY it. If you're missing one of those three, then just pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Take my money, go put it somewhere. All right, the next one, a Spartan masters their emotions. I think this one could very easily be up as part of number one, and as far as pushing limits, because understanding your emotional state, understanding your, as you say, your emotional intelligence, understanding those things about yourself will allow you to keep that stuff reined in and occasionally push outside that boundary every now and then.
Yeah. Well, and this is basically, the 300 BC version of emotional intelligence, right? It's you have to have a certain amount of self-inspection so that you can understand yourself and how you're made up and what you're about and what your triggers are and all that type of stuff, right? Because all of that understanding, all of the things that we talked about on that 2-part series on emotional intelligence, the fundamental piece of that is it leads to emotional regulation, right? And then that leads to social awareness and allows you to be able to maneuver really well in social spaces, whether that's at work or private personal relationships, things like that. So, but emotional regulation is important, right? I mean, we've all seen the cat that flies off the handle every time he gets bad news, or, the cat that flies off the handle anytime he thinks he's being blamed for something, even though it's probably his fucking fault, and has no ability to manage that or regulate those emotions. And it's like, Jesus Christ, man, what's your fucking problem? Like, we're just trying to have a conversation with you. We're trying to figure out how to fix this, right? And they just lose their shit, and then you can't do anything with them because they're worthless at that point. So emotional regulation is very important. Being able to
had that conversation. I had that conversation with a couple of guys recently about, dude, just take a deep breath, man. You got to realize that in this thing that we're working on, there's not a lot of this that you can control. So let's just focus on those one or two items, and everything else is just chaff.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Roscoe, is like, focus on what you can control. If there's a similar situation that you're talking about, right? When, for the particular company that I work for, when we were going through contract negotiations, you got people just losing their fucking minds over, the reports that we're getting from the bargaining committee and all that stuff about the back and forth that's going on with the company. And I mean, just losing their shit day after day after day.
But you can't do anything about it, man.
For like 4 years. And I'm just looking at this cat going, dude, what are you going to do? Are you over there bargaining for us? Like, do you have any influence over the folks that are at the table? No, then just like, chill, brother. Like,
Yeah.
it's all going to work itself out, man. Just
Well,
getting
and
spun
that
up for no
example right
reason.
there, at the end of the day, what is his one thing that he can control? When it comes down to it, he's got to vote. He can either
Yeah.
vote it up or down, right? And we're kind of seeing that today in American politics.
Yeah.
You know, people are hating on one side or the other, and there's just not a lot you can do except control your own outbursts and what you say, control your words, and then in November, go cast your ballot, man.
Yeah. Well, and
That's your voice.
what's more important than the one thing being that he can vote or that you and I can vote in this election coming up is that you can choose how you react
That's
to that
right. Yeah.
information, right? You can
Yeah.
choose how you respond, you know? Maybe your response should be, I need to go do a little more fucking research to figure out if what I'm being told is legit or not, or accurate or
Especially
not.
if you subscribe to mainstream media today, that's probably the
Seriously,
answer.
right?
Yeah.
Because the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
And you know that, but at the end of the day, though, that's emotional regulation. So
Yeah.
and it's important, like what they talk about, the sub bullets they have there. Never too high, never too low. Bad days happen, but can't let that affect your work or your week.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and know when to walk away. Like, you want to talk about politics right now, like it's so divisive, that you may have a differing opinion from somebody else, but you probably know pretty when you're talking to that person up front whether or not it's even worth having a conversation with them or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because some people are so ingrained in one side or the other that you can just tell from the rhetoric that comes out of them. So are you gonna go strap it on and let's go toe to toe for somebody who's not gonna fucking listen to you? Or is that one of
Yeah.
those situations where you just go, got it, I know where you're at. There's probably no point in having this conversation and making this weird or us both getting riled up. So I'm just gonna let this one. I'm just gonna walk away. I'm gonna let this
Just
one
walk
die.
away. Yeah. There's a lot of that, man, and that doesn't. Let's not. I don't want to get too far into this and not allow for. There are some things that you should fall on your sword for.
Sure.
That said, I would,
it's called your
if
values.
you do some of this, if you do some of this self-inspection and you learn about yourself, you'll know what those things are, and you'll know where those lines are crossed. And dude, politics is not one of them.
Nope,
it's just not, man, because the pendulum swings both ways about every 15 or 20 years, and just wait, just be patient,
Yeah. And
but there
for
was
the younger guys out there, I just want to be really clear about this one point when it comes to like social situations like that. You don't have to be fucking right. Right?
That's
Like,
a good point. Yeah.
You don't always have to be right, and you're probably not most of the time anyways, but you don't have to be right. Like, sometimes it's not worth whatever the effort that you want to put into something to try to prove that you're right, your quote unquote right is going to be. Like, just, dude, stay in your values. Let your values be reflected in your behaviors and in your words and in your actions, and you'll be fine.
I hate to reference this one again, but it is fresh on my brain because I've been listening to it over the last couple of days. But Megyn Kelly had a good point where she said, look, whenever I would hear feedback, good or bad, an argument, a disagreement, an agreement, it didn't matter. My answer was always thank you. Because regardless of which side you fall on that one, you've either verified that you've done the research and you kind of know the ins and the outs of this, or you've acknowledged, man, maybe I don't, or maybe I'm not the best at this. Maybe I'm not as good at this as I thought I was, or maybe I've opened a door to an opportunity to go learn something new. So, take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. And sometimes too, I mean, I learned this in politics when I was working in politics. Sometimes when you do something, if you're doing it, if you're in the right or the wrong based on who's coming out and throwing spears. So you got to take that into account as well. So sometimes just seeing the reaction from certain groups of people or certain folks lets you know that you probably have peeled the Band-Aid back on something that needs to be peeled back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's very true.
So,
that's very true. And you know what? There's another side to this bell curve. And, we talk about mastering your emotions and staying even and all that. But I'm guilty of this. In fact, I just got admonished this weekend for having resting bitch face too much. We're out at a concert, we're having a great time, and I'm just standing there, and you get one expression from Roscoe.
Yeah, dude, you do have a good resting bitch face.
I have a very good RBF. And, but it keeps me out of trouble more than it gets me into trouble, honestly, with those people who are close to me, I probably need to let that down a little bit. I need to work on that some. Because I mean, we're out at a bar, we're listening to music, we're at a piano bar, everybody's having a good time. I'll admit it was a little bit busy for me, but I mean, it was good. It was entertaining. And this is the look on my face the entire time.
Yeah.
And Katie's like, I wish you were having fun. I said, I am having a good time. She goes, well, you don't fucking show it. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. That's valid.
Some of us have lower affect. I have a lower affect as well.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know what? And if people want to judge you off of that, then I don't know, man. Like, I don't worry about that shit. I don't
think it's intentional.
Yeah. Anyways, some of that is just, I think, knowing and being comfortable with who you are, not really worrying about, false judgments or misperceptions that people may have of you for whatever reason. Because if they're going to hang around long enough, they're going to find out what you're about. And if you're a good dude, it's going to shine through eventually.
Yeah, I think so, and vice versa too. If you're a piece of shit, that'll eventually, it'll come out.
Opportunities always present themselves.
Present themselves. Words are hard.
They are.
So into the next one, these all kind of weave in, and you see these common themes pop up everywhere. But the next one is a Spartan learns continuously. Something we've already hit on is, trying to learn some new skill or a new thing, or pick up a new book, something that you've never read before. Pick up a DIY project that you maybe have been putting off for a little bit or scared to tackle. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there to just try something different, try something new. Like, I remember the first time I did yoga. It wasn't that long ago. It was only a couple of years ago, the first time I did yoga, and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I still don't. But I realized after the fact, I was like, wait a minute, I actually kind of like this. It's therapeutic. It's quiet. It's dark in my room. I'm getting a good stretch, and I don't. There's none of, like, the girls that do those crazy twisty. They look like a pretzel at the end of it. No. We're talking about some very basic, like, downward dog type shit. But trying something different. That was the point. I was trying something different. I was trying something new, something I'd never done before in all of my 40-something years. So break out of that glass that you're in and try something different, man.
Yeah, stay curious, build skills. That's all it comes down to, right? Continue to try to improve yourself. And there's a bunch of ways to do it. I mean, that's why you and I started this podcast. If you haven't taken the time to do the values exercise, set aside time and do the values exercise. Have some time for self-inspection. Figure out what those things mean to you, and then start practicing how you want to show up so that you can practice integrity by having your values represented in your actions and your behaviors and your words. There's every single one of us out there can be improving on something. And every single one of us is flawed. So
to that point, we talk about the self-inspection stuff, and we've talked about it in this just in the last few minutes. You talk about the self-inspection, you're going to learn something new about yourself.
Yes, you are.
And if you're going through these processes that we talk about on the Be One Change One podcast, you're going to change. And when you change, you need to redo. It's like the self-licking ice cream cone, right? You need to redo that self-inspection. You'll probably learn something new about yourself. And this process is ongoing. So when it says you're continuously learning, I mean, this could just be going on between your ears, right? I mean, just on you and how you are as a human being. And do you emotionally regulate yourself? And are you pushing your limits, et cetera?
Yeah, well, there you go. If you have an issue with emotional regulation, maybe that's something you need to look into. And build some skills around. Maybe you're not a very resilient person. Maybe you're a very fearful person and can't get outside of your comfort zone. Like all these things that we've talked about on the podcast are ways that you can move out and build skills and get in the arena, like we talk about, and start doing the work. And like you said earlier, none of it's easy, man. And it's a continuous improvement process.
Yeah.
Like,
and then you fuck something up and you're kind of back at square one.
And I hate to break it to everybody, but it never ends. And you get better at it, but the ability to improve, the ability to continue to self-evaluate, it never ends.
Well, go back up to number one, where we're talking about pushing your mind and your body to your limits. And I use the example of doing pull-ups. The same could be said for the self-inspection shit, right?
Yep.
The same could be said for packing your house and moving. If you do it enough times, it never gets really easy, but you get better at it.
You
right?
do.
You learn the
You
process
build
of how this
skills.
is supposed to, you learn the process of how it's supposed to go. And okay, well, I'm in the XYZ phase of this right now. And you kind of learn to power through because you can see what's next. And then you're going to go out and test some things and you're going to fuck that up. And then you go back. And the bottom line is, though, is if you never start, you definitely can't finish.
Yeah.
You got to know where you are to get to where you're going. So
Yeah.
start now and do some introspection, do some of that self-inspection shit and figure out what kind of person you are, what kind of person you want to be, set some goals and start moving.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Good shit, man. A Spartan
Yep.
gives generously.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, you could put give generously into so many contexts. So, like, how generous are you to yourself and the time that you afford yourself to go after the things that you're trying to accomplish, or to build in your schedule the time that you need to affect the change that you want to see in your life or the goals that you're chasing, and then how generous are you to other people? I'm not saying walk around, handing out $20 bills to everybody, or that's not generosity. What we're getting at here is,
Could be emotional support.
yeah, it could be
Could
like,
be
especially for the
time.
people that are important to you, time. And it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
big either, right? Like, I can remember several summers back, and this was a really good lesson for my younger son. One of our neighbors across the street, it was during the summertime, and the dad had gone on a trip for like 3 weeks. He had gone on like some kind of a trip. He was out of the country. And the mom across the street had 3 younger kids. I think like 12 to, I don't know, 6 or something, right? Well, it's, 115 degrees outside every day. Everything's growing like crazy. Their front yard is out of fucking control because you know how the grass gets in, the beginning of summer. Front yard's out of control, and I'm out there getting ready to go do our yard, and I see their yard. And this lady, she's got no time. She's got 3 little kids she's chasing around all fucking day long. There's no way that she has time to go out there and do anything with her yard, right? So I went inside and got my youngest son, and I said, hey, man, we're going to go over there and cut their grass and trim it up and make it look nice. And so we did. And that was just a small piece of generosity that, we expressed to a neighbor, but, a great lesson out of it. And when the guy came back, he was like super thankful, very
Of course he was.
appreciative, So anyways, you can do it in all kinds of ways, man.
But your son walks away from that feeling good about himself. Like, hey man, I did a good deed, and
that's right.
And it's not really about feeling good about yourself. It's about what I was going to get to here was the attitude of gratitude, man, to be thankful that you have the opportunity to do those things.
Yeah.
And something that I need to do a little bit better of, I think, is taking a few minutes every day and just saying thanks for something, and it could be anything. I mean, like, man, I'm really thankful that I got air conditioning. That was not the case at the beginning of August when it was balls hot down here. My AC was out for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But now I'm really thankful that I got AC and I got a fan over my head that's blowing this nice cool air over me. So having an attitude of gratitude, I think, just puts things in perspective for you.
I agree. And sometimes it's just see a need, fill a need, man. If you see something that needs to be done or somebody that needs a little bit of help, extend yourself, if you can.
Heck yeah, dude. Gosh,
what did
this
Josh
one is
say,
easy.
Value added?
What's that?
What did Josh say? Value added? Make yourself value added?
Add value to something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're like me and you're not real good at a lot of things, you can just be the comic relief in the corner.
That's right.
See? Know your role and shut your hole. A Spartan leads. That one's pretty easy. And gosh, man, I've given so many examples of this over the last year or so, but it could be something as simple as setting up the group text for your workspace so that y'all can share information. That's leadership, man. It doesn't have to be this grandiose thing of you standing at a podium with a gavel, right? You don't have to have a title to be a leader. Anybody can do this.
Yeah. Leadership exists at every level. You can lead just by setting an example for people, and being on time and your mannerisms and, how you prepare, things like that. That's all that can be leadership.
Sure.
Kid talked about when he was on with us, before he got selected to go up and be part of Polaris Dawn, he was working at SpaceX and, he was doing all the grunt work and the
Carry the
dirty work
briefcase.
and all the stuff that nobody else wanted to do. But that's okay, because he just wanted to be involved. He just wanted to be part of the project. So he was throwing his hand up for any little thing that nobody else would throw their hand up for. That's showing leadership, man. That shows investment. That shows a desire to be a part and to help and to do good for the organization or whatever it is that you're working with. So
for sure. Well, I would say too, man, that maybe there are people listening that aren't comfortable being that person out front. You know, they don't want the limelight. They don't want the attention. You know, maybe they're a little bit introverted or they're nervous or they're shy. To those people, I would go back and I would say, hey, challenge yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
But I will also say, well, you know what? If you just develop a high personal standard for you and your actions, that's leadership. If you start to adhere to your own personal standard and your own high level of excellence, just by the way you carry yourself and the things that you do, the way that you push your body to its limits and your mind to its limits and the way that you keep your balance and everything, people notice that shit. And eventually they'll follow you. And they may not ever say it. They may not ever say that you were the inspiration for them to go back and do the thing that they wanted to do. But you know, because you carry yourself well, right? And you're getting the added benefit of, A, it's the pride of knowing that you're holding up your own standard, but B, it's all the positive effects that come from that. You know, you're going to be in a little bit better shape mentally, physically, spiritually. You're going to be able to emotionally regulate yourself a little bit better. You're going to have more balance in your life, and you're going to find happiness through that.
Yeah, you can't stress enough the importance or the concept of setting a personal standard for yourself, you know, and how you are going to show up, how you're going to perform, the amount of effort you put in, and then holding yourself to that, you know, and hopefully you set a standard for yourself that's above and beyond whatever the standard, if there even is one that exists, you know, for the organization that you're in, if we're talking about it in a professional context. Because if you do, like you're saying, Roscoe, people are going to notice that. And that is leadership.
They will. Yeah.
You know, and when you do those things, you start to find personal efficiencies, maybe even organizational inefficiencies that you can make more efficient. And when you start to bring those things to light and start to help make change, positive change in those respects, leadership, right? So,
and it all goes back to your values and those exercises. Yeah. If you're the guy that bends over and picks the trash up off the floor, guess what, man? People saw that. People know what kind of dude you are now because they saw you take 2 seconds out of your day and bend over and pick up the gum wrapper.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a well-adjusted introvert. I don't like the limelight necessarily. But you know, when we were in the fighter squadrons, different environment, there is a standard, but you set a standard above that for yourself, you know, so that you can excel in certain ways. And then the important part of that piece too, I think, and another way that you can demonstrate leadership is if there is a standard, you hold people to that standard.
Yeah.
That's also leadership. You know, having the fortitude to maintain accountability when accountability needs to be maintained.
Yeah.
That's also leadership.
Well, I think that leads right nicely into the next one that says a Spartan stands up for what they believe in. And then there's another part to that sentence that says, no matter the cost. We could probably leave that part off for now, but standing up for what you believe in, you know, I said earlier, there's things to fall on your sword for and not to. Like, I'm not okay with you hitting on my wife and trying to get her in bed. That's a line. Don't cross the line. Right. But then there's other things that it's like, you know what, this just isn't worth it. You know, I'm not going to die on this hill today. I'll back off. I'll live to fight another day. So when it says that at no matter the cost, that's the part of the statement that I had a little bit of an issue with, but try not to be in absolutes. Yeah.
I agree. And I think like you said, as you go through the process of self-inspection and defining your personal values, you'll find where those lines fall. Right. So like maybe, you know, integrity is a big one for me. And so if somebody has a personal issue with me or maybe just personality issue with me, you know, whatever, man, we can try to work it out. We can acknowledge it and do our own thing. I'm not going to judge you for it, whatever. But if you're going to start challenging my integrity, that's a line where now we have to have a conversation around things, right? Now we have to sort this out because that's not okay. That's not okay for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to pick your battles. Just to use a platitude, you know, Don't die on the hill you don't
Well,
need to die on for no reason.
no, but I
Pick
can give
what you
you a
want to fall
recent
on your sword for.
I'll give you a recent example from work a while back. It's been a few weeks ago now. There was an opportunity that came up, and I volunteered for the opportunity, and I was told no. I was told no for the wrong reason, and this was the Thursday before Labor Day weekend that I found this out. I found out about noon or so, and then Katie and I were jumping a flight later that afternoon. So I sat on it all weekend. I didn't engage when I was emotional about the thing. I gave myself the whole long weekend to fester, think, meditate on it, figure out how I wanted to approach this the next Tuesday when I went into work. So Tuesday I went in and I went to the boss's office and we shut the door and I said, do you understand why I'm upset about this? And he goes, I'm sorry, man. It is what it is. It's like, no. Like, I can't be good enough for you to send me to do this one thing, but then not good enough to send me to this other thing. Like, I'm either in or I'm out. And that's where I stand, man. And I was ready to fall on that. I was ready to die on that hill, because that was something that to me, a line was crossed. And you know what? I don't know if it was miscommunication or just didn't get high enough up the chain for the right person to make the decision or what, but the conversation got re-energized, and 24 hours later, I was offered the opportunity.
Yeah.
So cooler heads prevailed. It was okay. It ended up not working out because of funding and whatnot. But the point is, like, I had a line, and I do pretty well. I'm the only Wizzo within about 300 miles of this place.
Mm-hmm.
And I do pretty well to a point.
Yeah.
But in this particular instance, I felt like there was a line that was crossed, and I challenged it. And you know what? We got it worked out. So pick your battles, know which ones you're going to go in hard on. And sometimes it's just not worth it. Sometimes you just need to swallow hard and walk away.
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, right, don't be afraid to speak up if you have input or something that you think's value added, or a situation like yours where there's a foul, right, and that needs to just be called out. Don't be afraid to speak up. And at the same rate, when the boss makes a decision, don't be afraid to fall in line, right? If the boss makes a decision and it's counter to maybe what your point of view was, or you may not have all the data that the boss has, or there may be other extenuating circumstances that you're not aware of that the boss is, and like just go to task and do your best work. So I think a good way to break this up is the difference. You know what the difference between an opinion and a principle is?
Yeah.
A principle is something that you're willing to sacrifice for.
You
know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
you can have opinions about a whole bunch of things, but you're not sacrificing anything for that, right? But a principle is something that you're willing to sacrifice for, whether that's time, whether that's money, personal investment, effort, whatever, right? So if it's an opinion, dude, let it go, right? If it's a principle that's aligned with your values, then you might need to put a little effort into it.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. Good stuff. So yeah, pick your battles, know your role. When you were talking about the leader making a decision, what's the alternative to that? You gonna go talk shit behind their back? Well, guess what, man? You just exposed yourself.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of person you are, that you're gonna go talk shit behind the. Now, I'll say that with a little tongue in cheek, because a certain amount of a requisite amount of sport bitching is not only expected but healthy. Sometimes in an organization, in a group of friends, whatever it is, sit around and just razz a little bit. That's okay. But if you're sitting here dogging on the boss for the decision he made and call him an idiot and all this shit, well, man, you're showing your own true colors. You're just highlighting yourself for the wrong reasons at that point.
Yeah, and I'm here to tell you, having been in leadership positions and in some tricky situations in the past, like, there are some times as a leader where you're not I don't want to say allowed, but it's not really the right thing for you to do, to share maybe everything else that's going on, because it highlights the people above you. Or, like when we were in the 425th, man, I've got competing interests between the Air Force and the country of Singapore sometimes.
Yeah.
In directions that they want to go. And I have big fires over here that I'm trying to stiff arm. But rather than highlight that to everybody and then get everybody pissy this group of leadership or this group of
Yeah.
leadership. I just have to make a decision and move out because it falls on me anyways. At the end of the day, I'm the one that has to make the decision. And sometimes that's how it goes, right? And so just recognize that in those and I say all that just to say to recognize in those situations, sometimes you probably don't have the full picture.
That's good. That's good stuff. A Spartan knows their flaws as well as they know their strengths. Guess what, man? That's fucking self-inspection.
Yep.
Right? Look at yourself in the mirror, find something wrong, start working on it. Highlight something that's good. Highlight the good things in your life, the things that are going well. Continue. But focus on some of those weak spots, focus on the soft midsection or, the fact that you haven't read a book all year or something like that. And start working on that a little bit. Start remedying those weaknesses that you have. If you aren't comfortable speaking in front of other people, find opportunities to get up and talk to people. Start with a small group, 4 or 5 trusted people who are going to give you good feedback and not judge. And then, there's so many organizations out there that afford you different opportunities to do different things that in today's world, hell, you can probably do it in the comfort of your own home in a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Not even have to put pants on if you don't want to.
That's right. Yeah, but you're right, man. There's all kinds of groups, right? Because there's like Toastmasters, there's running groups, there's exercise groups, there's all these different things, and then there's all these other platforms that you can find on social media for support around a bunch of those things. So there's a whole bunch of ways to approach this. But I mean, it all goes back to self-inspection and having the humility to go, hey, here's the things that I think I'm not so good at, and then either working on building skills, finding a mentor to help you figure those things out and how to improve that. And that goes to leadership too. When you start this and you can do that for yourself, you're going to be amazed at how easily it is to see some of that in other people. Yeah. And from a leadership perspective, now you can see kind of strengths and weaknesses, and then you can kind of put your team together in a way that maximizes strengths and minimizes weaknesses.
Yeah, but not in a judgy way, though.
Not in a judgy way. No, not at all. But it doesn't have to be judgmental. The benefit of doing that is that, especially if you have somebody that maybe, more quiet, more shy, more introverted, if you know what their strengths are and you play to their strengths, they're going to be more comfortable. That comfortability over time is going to get them to open up to the group more. And you can start to get people out of their shell that way, right? So it's not about like, you suck at this, so I'm going to have you do this. It's not like that, man. It's just recognizing and then basically moving people and putting people in play where you can highlight their strengths.
Are you watching a rave party on TV?
Oh, no. Sorry.
The colors in your background keep changing. I'm like, wow, man.
My glasses.
It's I can see it in the pictures in your background back there.
No, I had a
lot of purples and greens.
Yeah.
That's funny. No, as you were talking, I was just thinking like I think it's really easy to point the finger at somebody else and say you're fucked up and this is why. And it's much more difficult to look at yourself in the mirror and say you're fucked up and this is why.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why, I keep saying over and over and over that humility is a superpower, man. And once you can break that down and really allow yourself that opportunity to learn from other people or make some changes in your own life, man, yeah, it's going to make you better at identifying those things in other people. And it may change your circle of 5 that you want to hang out with. But more importantly, it's going to change you. And that's really what this podcast is all about is getting down to the individual level and making some positive change in your own life, man. And you don't require anyone else to do this. You can do all this yourself in the comfort of your own home, in your pajamas. You can do this.
With some humility and honesty, you can do it.
That's right. That's right. A Spartan proves themselves through actions, not words. So walk the walk, man. Like put up or shut up, right? Don't just be a bag of hot air spewing shit all over social media. Like put that stuff out there. Like, no kidding. If you're going to walk in your own integrity and profess these values to other people, people need to be able to see you doing that. You need to be that example for other people. And that goes back to that personal standard we were talking about.
Yeah. And if you don't, you're going to get highlighted real fast too. Right.
And then people are going to see right through it. Right.
Yeah. People are going to see right through it and they're going to know you're fake. So, and that's not going to get you anywhere either. So, yeah. In my experience, the people that like to walk around with their chest out and talk about how great they are usually 1, not that great, and 2, the most insecure people in the group.
It definitely happens. It seems to happen that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're insecure, then that's how you try to make up for it, right? Like, I can't be wrong. It's somebody else's fault. Things like this, because you're so afraid of being exposed, because even though you
Yeah.
don't want to admit it, in your heart of hearts, you're not that great.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. So you do all this bravado and all this bullshit to try to make people think you are great. And guess what? It never works. People are going to see right
Yeah.
through it, man. So just have a little humility, and yeah, align your actions with your values and try to do the right thing as much as possible, or all the time. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. When you do, own up to it and
Yeah.
admit to it, and then learn from it and move on.
Well,
And
when we were talking about we were talking about your personal standard that you set for yourself, and just it's not an exact science, and you're going to get some things wrong,
yeah,
and like in my case, I tend to go too far in a certain direction. And then it takes people like you and Katie and those people that I have close to me. You kind of have to rein me back a little bit. Katie and I had a good discussion in here in the living room the other night, and I've been going too far in one direction, and I need to kind of get back to center a little bit. And that's okay. I've got a high personal standard for the thing that I'm working on at the time. The problem is I tend to focus so much of my energy on that the other things in my life it's that penguin on the iceberg theory, right? I
yeah,
got so many penguins on this iceberg that if I put one more penguin on it, something's going to fall off. And
yeah. One of them has to jump off.
oftentimes that comes at the expense of spending quality time with Katie, or, doing the other duties that I have around my house, or whatever. So back to balance, man. Just keep things in balance. And it's an ongoing struggle. Right now, I'm really struggling with it, and I got to get myself back to it. I need to spend some time back here in my room in the dark and just really come up with a plan and start executing.
Well, yeah, and the bottom line too is words are hollow, man. They don't mean anything if there's nothing behind them. So, I think when we talked about this the first time, the personal example that I brought up was Mr. Cooper, who was the head civilian maintenance guy in the 425th.
Yeah.
Hated pilots, and when I first showed up as the commander, man, he fought me tooth and nail the first month or two. Like, just I was trying to have these staff meetings to kind of get everybody on the same sheet of music, to make sure we were sharing information, doing all the stuff that hadn't been done in a long time in that squadron. And the very first one, the two guys that were underneath him, that were kind of like shop chiefs on the maintenance side, were supposed to be at this meeting. And like 15 minutes before the meeting's about to happen, my secretary comes to me and she's like, yeah, Mr. Cooper's not bringing him. He told him to, or actually one of them came into the office and said, hey, he told us not to go. And so I went down to his office. I'm like, dude, what the fuck, man? Like, I'm not trying to take over your empire here. Like, I know you don't trust pilots, but come on, man. Like, I'm trying, this is a positive thing. I'm trying to get us all on the same sheet of music. Well, I can communicate it too. And I go, I get that, Coop, but like, what if they have input? What if they have really valuable input, and you don't have that to share with a group at the time? I don't want to have to circle back, and anyway, so they ended up being there. But man, I'll tell you what, for that first 4 to 6 months, he was so hard on me. But the reason I tell the story is I was consistent. And what I kept telling him about, hey, I'm here to remove obstacles for you. I'm here to support you. I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. My actions over time proved that to him. And by the end of that tour, man, we had a really good relationship.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
did you ever watch on Netflix? There's a couple of Conor McGregor documentaries. Did you ever watch either one of those?
No.
First of all, okay, so I like Conor McGregor. I like that he's flamboyant. I like that he's created this caricature of himself, and the fact that he wants to run for president of Ireland, I think is fan-fucking-tastic. All right. That said, I do find it comical when he's the one talking so much shit in the pressers, right? Getting up in your face and throwing whiskey at people and calling them motherfuckers and all this, and then he goes and gets beat. Right?
Yeah, gets his ass handed to him.
The comma and then after that is he goes back to training. He shows a lot of humility, but in that moment, right? In that moment, he has gone out there and he has talked a really good game, and then he lost, right? And as comedic as that is, and as fun of an example as that is, man, you see it in almost every day. Somebody's talking shit about something and they just can't back it up. Like, how good would Steph Curry go to the Hall of Fame if he only talked about hitting 3-pointers?
Right.
No, you got to go out and bang a couple in, man.
Yeah.
So anyways, Last one. Spartan lives every day as if it were their last. All right. A little bit of an absolute here, but let's break this down, right?
A little extreme.
I think the point is, be intentional and purposeful with your actions, right?
Yes.
Take every day for what it is. Have some gratitude, and the fact that you woke up this morning and it's a beautiful day and you can go jogging. That's something to take advantage of, man. And don't just sit there and let life pass you by.
Yeah. Every day is an opportunity, man. Every day is an opportunity to get better, to move the ball a little bit further forward, to work on that relationship, to reach out to that lost friend, to try something new, to build a new store, start working towards building a new skill. Every day is a new opportunity, and you may fail along the way. And guess what? The next day you get an opportunity to try it again. And that's okay, man. That's life. Like that's what this is all about. It's hard. It's messy. Shit never goes the way you fucking want it to. Never the way you expect it to. There's always going to be roadblocks and obstacles, and guess what?
Yeah.
The beautiful part about life is you get choices to make in all of that.
Yeah.
Well, and do you roll up in the fetal position in the corner, or do you find ways to move forward? Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because what's the alternative, and we did an episode a while back. I don't know what number it was, but I think we titled it Old People. And the resounding message from our elderly people that we read about or interviewed for the show was, you don't want to end up where they're at in the twilight of their life with a bunch of regrets of, man, I focused on the wrong things, or I spent all those years just sitting on the couch watching TV. Like, we need to be like, take advantage of it, man. I don't want to be in the nursing home sitting in the corner saying, what if? I want to be the guy with all the cool fucking stories, man. I want to slide into that motherfucker sideways, leaving a trail of smoke going, holy shit, that was fun. You know?
Well, that's procrastination, right? It'll keep you in that it'll be like, oh, it's too hard. I can't do it. It's too much. But you're going to come to a point in life where you're going to recognize, or it's going to be too late, that getting no from people or no from certain things is better than living with what if in the back of your mind for the rest of your life.
And having not tried at all.
What if I would have tried that? Would things have worked out differently? Would I be in a different position? If you get a hard no, well, then right? Now
that's
you can
fine.
pivot, you can go in a different direction, right? Sometimes that's how
change
it works.
Things up.
Yeah.
So this was something that, I was listening to these podcasts from these different authors about these stories that they were telling. And some of them are really good storytellers, man, like fantastic, have series of books on these characters. And one of the things that one of them said was, hey, man, give yourself the grace, allow yourself to write a shitty first draft.
Yeah.
And I think it was Stephen King that was famous for saying, you can't edit what wasn't written. Like, and that goes for anything in life, right?
Yeah.
If you don't try it, you can't fix it. You can't make it better on the next iteration if you don't do version 1. And how many times have you nailed it on version 1? Rarely, if ever, do you nail it on version 1. But version 2 is a little bit better. And version 10 is going to be pretty darn good. And maybe version 20, you nail it,
Yeah, well, and not to mention, just to put a bow on it too, from all the other things that we've talked about, all of the skills that you learn through that process, all of the different ways that you make yourself better through that process, the things you learn about yourself, your own abilities, your strengths, your weaknesses. You don't get to explore those things. You don't get to figure those things out for yourself if you don't get in the fucking arena.
That's right.
Like, you have got to get outside of your comfort zone and get out there. And like we always say, you're going to get bloody. You're going to get marred. You're going to get beat up. It's gross. But dude, at the end of the day, you're either going to succeed, or at least you attempted it, and you're not one of those cold, timid souls that's just sitting in the corner playing the what if game.
That's right. Well, this is a fadeaway in my first book, No New Lessons. This was on the last page. right? This is the second to last quote in the book. And it says, it's from Harry S. Thompson, and he says, life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, wow, what a ride.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the guy I want to be at the end, man.
Yeah,
I want to,
I love it.
You know,
that's badass.
I want to be in there with the little old ladies in the fucking nursing home with the crowd around me going, hey, man, there was this one time that
let me tell you about this asshole friend I had named Cass Cooper.
Well, I need that. I want the tattoo when I'm 80 years old that says #no regrets.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I hear it.
So anyways, man, dude, that's good shit. When we get off air here, remind me, I got to tell you a quick story, a quick funny. But, yeah, dude. So the Spartan Code. All right. They talk in some absolutes, and it is, you know, BC or thereabouts when it was kind of written. So take it with a grain of salt, but I think that I think there's definitely good lessons learned for, you know, today's day and age, especially if you're trying to be a little more stoic and motivated in your life.
Yeah. Growth mindset, emotional regulation, self-inspection, you know, continuous improvement process, learn where you can, get better every day. Lather, rinse, repeat, right? That's it. That's the recipe. That's the recipe for success.
Yeah.
That's the recipe to move forward.
And give yourself some grace. Allow yourself to have a bad day.
Give yourself some grace. Recognize it's not gonna be easy. There's gonna be obstacles, but also recognize that you're probably more capable than you think you are.
Yeah. Try hard, man.
Yeah.
I got nothing else. What do you got?
I got nothing, man. Be the change.
All right. Be the one. Thanks for flying with the Be One Change One podcast. If you got something out of this show, then be the one and share it in your circles of influence.
You can be our wingman through our website at www.be1change1.com. That's B and the number 1, change and the number 1.com.
We invite you to be the one and join our fighter squadron on social media at Be1Change1 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow us at Paul Roscoe White on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as Roscoe's website, www.paulroscoewhite.com.
You can email us from the website, and please leave comments, share, and ask questions, or leave ideas of things you would like to discuss on future podcasts. Most importantly, be the one that helps us win the algorithm by leaving a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thanks for joining. Until next time, be the one.